Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and with me, of course, is the Mr. Matt Germain. How you doing, Matt?
I'm surviving, Mark. Like the rest of Rays fans, I'm surviving.
It has been a year. I mean, we're getting here. It's called the stretch. We're past the stretch. The postseason spotlights are slowly dimming, and the reality of the janitors there ready to come in and sweep off the stage and wait for the next matinee. So we'll see how it all plays out. But my gosh, Matt, it's been an interesting year for the Rays, and there's a lot we can talk about. The postseason and MLB standings, new ownership, what's happening with some of the people in the front office, who's coming, who's going. And as you pointed out to me earlier today, let's see, a new guy who's going to be heading up the Perth Heat. And Mr. Perry Roth, will chat maybe a little bit about him as well. Let's see. I've got the Yandy Diaz. My gosh, he's just been great. Montgomery Biscuits, what's happening with them? And the prospects that you picked earlier this year that seem to be performing very well with that team. And there's a whole lot more I got on here, but those are the main pieces that I was thinking. So, Matt, if we're looking at postseason, I was kidding about the dimming of the lights, but right now, it's closing, boys and girls. I mean, there's that one team. I believe only one team has clinched thus far, and that's the National League East with the Phillies. They've got a 91-61 record, and the Mets are right behind them, 12 and a half games back. So with only 9 games left in the season, it ain't going to happen. That's done. NL Central, Brewers are 92-59. And Cubs are 4.5 games back. The NL West, that's going to be interesting, Matt. Looking at the Dodgers and also the Padres, there's only a couple of games between them right now. The Dodgers leading that off. And the Diamondbacks are 7.5 games back. If we come into our own backyard, the AL East, Jays are 89-62. Yankees are 5 games back, and we are 16 games back to win the division.
I'm looking at it from a glass half full point of view, Mark. What I'm looking at is the Rays have improved their draft position substantially over the last week. So when you're looking at the bottom of the American League, it's pretty evident that the Rays, were in the hunt probably up to 10, 14 days ago for the last playoff spot and as a wild card team. But right now, when you're looking at it, they're only 2 losses away from being among the worst 4 in the American League. And then when you're looking at it from the combined point of view, it's the bottom 8. So I think we've seen before the Guardians, correct me if I'm wrong, but have jumped from that position up to having the top pick overall. So they're in that range now where they can actually start dreaming about being in the top 3, top 4, top 5 drafting teams, which the Rays historically, some hit and miss in that range. Like Brendan McKay was a great grab at number 4, but he, so I'm looking at it from a glass half full to get the opportunity to try to improve on that front, because we know that basically the playoffs are out right now in terms of a potential something to play for this year. But like we mentioned before in the past, this last month has been more about getting experience for the players and getting some of them playing under pressure. And I think that's going to, pay dividends for them later on.
Yeah, I mean, we'd all love to see Aranda out there doing his business, but by him and some of the other guys who are on the IL right now has given us the opportunity to see some of that those young guys come up in some really great performances. And I'm going to deviate here for just a bit because I want to talk about something you put up at the very beginning of the season, and that was looking at the top prospects. And one of the things you had on that list, it was always interesting to me as the season continued to see names coming up through the single A, double A, triple A, into the Rays. And I said, oh yeah, Matt was talking about them, and yesterday, the Montgomery Biscuits play the first game in their playoff season, and I'm seeing names like Homer Bush, Ledbetter, and some other ones I said, these names are familiar to me. I said, oh yeah, that's right. These are the guys Matt's been talking about all along. And a guest of ours on here recently, Mr. Kevin Bowes of the manager. And it was interesting to talk about building that team. But I'm so excited to see them doing so well. And then today is Wednesday. So Thursday, they're playing the second game in that championship series in Biloxi.
That's right. And they're playing again, to be clear, they're playing against a formidable Brewers affiliate, the Shuckers, who have like, if you look at the on-base percentage of the core of their lineup and the talents that they have aboard, like they're a very, very, very talented team. They've got a shortstop called, I'm sure I'm going to mess up the name and how it's pronounced, but it's Jesus Made is how you would actually read it. It might be Made, it might be, a different way of saying the last name. But he's an 18-year-old kid playing in Double A and anchoring their lineup in the two spot. And he's a guy that's sporting a 379 on base percentage his first year as an 18-year-old in Double A. So it tells you a lot about the talent that he has and brings to the table, and the fact that they would trust him and give him that experience. But this is my caveat with you, like I've mentioned before, with the Rays and how they develop their hitters, and then you look at the Brewers and what they're doing with their young, talented hitters, right? The Rays had a very, very talented Brendan Summerhill begin in A-ball, even though he has 4 years of college experience, and here's this 18-year-old kid anchoring the Double A lineup for the Brewers. There's a clear difference in confidence between the two and how they bring their players up. So what you can look through the entire Shuckers lineup, and it's very, very, very talented. So what Brody Hopkins did yesterday was very impressive because he was able to shut out that lineup with only allowed 3 hits and 2 walks, struck out 7. He looked dominant all the way through, looked well composed, never really got out of sorts. And he got some help from Will Simpson. I don't know if anybody remembers who Will Simpson is, but he was part of that Jacob Lopez and Jeffrey Springs deal that the Rays made with the A's. And so he was one of the pieces that came back with Joe Boyle. And so he's had a up and down season, not really exactly what the Rays expected, but it's great to see him come through in a playoff game like this. He went 3 for 4 with a home run. So really, provided the majority of the thump for the Rays. And Homer Bush, we mentioned before, he's just that spark plug at the top of the lineup, hitting this 2 spot for the Biscuits. And he went 2 for 5 with 2 RBI as well. So overall, just enough offense to get them across the line at 7-2 win. And like I mentioned on Blue Sky as well, TJ Nichols gets the ball for them the next time out, and he is excellent. He's like one of the 2 other guys that you would want on the mound for them. Ty Johnson was the other one, but I think he's in AAA now, so who knows if they'll send him back down to make one of those starts, and that's possible. They've done that in the past.
Thanks again for giving us a breakdown of what's happening with the Biscuits, and also giving us a heads up so early in the season, my friend. I mean, giving you folks go back and look at that top 50 that he had. I think maybe I'll post it again on Blue Sky, the whole piece there. But I know for a long time you had it listed as the top of your postings. But it is interesting. We'll see how that plays out. And looking across where we're getting a lot of this talent, you pointed out to me earlier today that sort of things were going on with the Perth Heat, a team with the Australian Baseball League. And that particular team is where we have gotten a lot of folks and where we've sent a lot of folks, during the off season to fine tune their skills. I think Junior Caminero has been one of the people that was part of that.
Yeah. So was Mike Brosseau. Mike Brosseau went down there and did very well. Garrett Whitley, a whole bunch of guys that had gone down there. Kevin Kiermaier probably set the stage for all of them, really. He originally went to Brisbane, I think.
Brisbane Bandits.
Yeah. So he got his feet wet there to try to amp up his bat. And you know what? I would credit the ABL for helping him get his bat to the bare minimum where it could be tolerated along with his outstanding defense, right? So sometimes it's just that little bit extra that you can get to have the consistency you need to get the team confident enough to put you in the lineup. So essentially that's how I see the ABL is It's a place, and we've talked about this before, an opportunity for Latin American players who don't have the playing time that they wish they could have had in rookie ball or in A ball. But a lot of times it also serves as a springboard for guys that had injuries and need more playing time as a result. So in Mike Brosseau's case and a couple of other ones, that was essentially the reason that they accepted the opportunity to go down there and play some extra ball. Now, the guy that they hired is called Perry Roth, and he actually spent the majority of his coaching career in the University of Alabama, Birmingham. So he's an American coach that they've hired to do this work with them. So it'll be interesting to see, the Rays have such a close relationship with Perth Heat that it's actually mentioned in the article that the Rays are expected to send 3 to 4 of their top prospects to Perth this year. So that's what we can expect. It's not going to be the 7 maximum, which they've sent in the past. It's going to be interesting to see, who they decide to send, because now that we know Braden Taylor and a bunch of other guys are going over to the Arizona Fall League, it's going to be interesting to see who grabs onto that opportunity to go down to the ABL. I always enjoy watching those games. I think it's a refreshing change in middle of late fall and winter to watch the guys down there and see how they're grabbing onto that opportunity down there.
It's interesting to see. I'm glad I know looking through that, and I think of the other ones as well. The Dominican Republic, they have their league there. The Mexican does as well, and seeing where a lot of our players may wind up or who we may see in the future from there. Who was the guy? I've done this on there. I always forget his name on the show. Who was the speedster we had about 5 years ago? Malik Smith. Malik Smith. You remember Malik Smith?
Yep.
Yeah, and if I remember, he came from a Mexican league, and he was not in MLB at the time, but
Right.
I think of him now and then. Wow. So yeah, Perry Roth, as you're pointing out, I mean, he's had a bit of a history already with the Rays organization. I didn't realize he'd already been with the River Dogs and the Hot Rods as well. It's amazing. Getting back to the Tampa Bay Rays, I got to tell you, brother, Karen and I went to the first game at George Steinbrenner this week, and that was a life experience. It was good. There wasn't much going on as far as there wasn't really a rain. I mean, it was cool. Not cool. I mean, like 82 degrees, and there was a breeze coming along, and it wasn't bad. We took seats behind the third base, and we're behind the dugout, and then of course that means we're sitting right in the around a bunch of Blue Jays fans. And it was Puerto Rican night. There was a lot of people partying, dancing, and singing, and it was a fun night for all. I'd forgotten how much fun it was to be in the midst of the game, and got to see our old friend KK you mentioned earlier. Old Blue Eyes himself was hanging out there in the dugout. I forget what advisory row he has with the Blue Jays now, but it was quite an evening.
Yeah, you know what? I forgot that he would be there during this series. That's a good call on spotting him in there.
Well, Karen saw him. I saw folks wearing Kiermaier. Yeah, I saw folks wearing Kiermaier shirts, and then suddenly looking down a little further, she says, "Oh, you mean the guy himself? He's right down there."
He spotted his eyes across the.
That's
the
it, man. That perfect profile, those blue eyes oh gosh. I remember when I used to work at the Tropicana and as a fan host, and you would see all these silver-haired women with Kiermaier jerseys on. Remind me of, what was it, the 80 for Brady? It was had that kind of feel for I don't know what you would say for Kiermaier, but it was something like that. It was a neat time. I got to tell you that we just drove right up there. We got about there, an hour and a half before the game, paid $30 for parking at one place. And it was right by where they have an overpass going over the main road, and it empties out into right field. So as soon as you get across the bridge, there you are. They're ready for your ticket to go ahead and take care of business. It was a delightful experience, man. It was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we did it.
No, I'm glad you did it too, because apparently I'm reading this article from Rob Manfred. on the stadium hunt, and apparently he's expecting the Rays to have a clean slate as soon as the team is sold, and that basically all wrongdoings of the past and grievances against Stu Sternberg should be forgotten, and they should be able to look anywhere for anything that they so choose. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with and where they lean towards first.
Well, I'm excited to hear that from Rob. I know there's been friction back and forth. There's been support from the commissioner, and then it's been withdrawn. I think initially he kind of liked the idea of having a team split between Montreal and Tampa, and then he backed away from it very seriously. And that fell out. But I hope that's the case. I'm looking forward to this new ownership. Everything I hear from the sidelines is nothing but good things. So we'll see how that plays out. But some key players are already in movement, and that is the co-presidency, if you will, that's in the Rays organization. We have two presidents, Matt Silverman and Brian Alt. That's what we need is another president. But both these guys, they both are stepping, not leaving. My understanding they're going to be like in some kind of advisory role for a while. There's usually a transition. I mean, just like in a real presidency, you have a transition team who helps one team leave and another. I'd love to see another one of those in DC right now, but we'll wait for that. Whoops. Mm-hmm. Coming back to that, so Matt Silverman and Brian Auld have basically said, hey, we realize this is coming to an end. I was looking in comment sections on different places where they're talking about this, Matt, and not surprisingly, Neander's name came up. Eric Neander, who's I still think is a magician. And some people can never be happy enough. There's a few trades they said, oh my gosh, he's terrible. We need to get rid. They need to get rid of Neander right away. This is terrifying. It's like, come on, dude, slow down. It's if you look at where the Rays have been for like the last 5 years, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the great GMs, Mark, are great presidents as well, because in a lot of cases, it's the president's making the call. The great ones are the ones that dare.
Yeah.
The ones that dare to make moves, that dare to go for it, that dare to put themselves out there, hang their reputation on the line, and actually, ask Dave Dombrowski how many mistakes he's made in order to get to where he is, right? And he'll list them off. He'll tell you, I probably might have done this. But it's not going to change. He won't regret any of them because he's learned something along the way from every single move that he's made. Alex Anthopoulos spoke about the same thing. He knows that he wasn't perfect in Toronto and he's not perfect in Atlanta, but he's won the World Series.
Yeah.
And it's part of the process of actually, going for it and learning from it and trying to piece together something that is extremely hard to do. And like you mentioned, that salaries wise, I mean, what he's done with the Rays, yeah, you can nitpick. And I did today. I listed, because it's the end of the year, you're reflecting on the season, you're looking at what could have been. And so when you spoke about the Phillies earlier, they're led by Christopher Sanchez, who the Rays dealt for Curtis Mead. And they don't have Curtis Mead, and they don't have really anything to show for Curtis Mead very much at all. Adrian Hauser's here for another game or two, and that's it. That's all they'll have to have shown for Christopher Sanchez. Joe Ryan, there's nothing to show for Joe Ryan either. Mm. And they're both leading their pitching staffs, right? You're going to make those kinds of deals that make you uncomfortable, but you need to learn from them. That's essentially, and why did you have to make them? To me, that's what the post was about today, was the Rays were they forced themselves to have to make those uncomfortable trades because of how they develop hitters and their deficiency in doing so. So they were forced to go out there in order to, quote unquote, go for it. And so you have to appreciate that, especially with the financial constraints that they have. Realistically, they were trying to bring aboard a top 10 hitter in Major League Baseball when they dealt Joe Ryan. They were trying to bring in an impact hitter that they viewed as somebody that could be part of the core of their lineup when they got Curtis Mead. You have to applaud that. You do, because if you don't, then you never find a Junior Caminero, right? If you don't make that move, you never get to those special players that do work out and that do take you to that next level, or Yandy Diaz, and I can point to others that they've brought aboard as well. But yeah, anybody that complains about Eric Neander, send them my way, and I'll sort them out, Mark.
I'm glad to hear that, man, because, to me, anybody who doesn't realize what that man has done has just walked into the room and they have no idea of the history and the achievements of what he's done with the budget that he had been given. And he's outstanding. And I salute you, Eric, right here. And we'll have you on someday and you can share some of your thoughts about the decisions you make.
As long as I'll just put this addition on there, Mark, as long as the new ownership doesn't drastically change the way operations are done with the Rays, I predict Eric Neander will bring the first World Series to Tampa.
Hmm.
Like, I believe he'll be there the first time they win the World Series.
Well, I would hope that they recognize the talent that he is. I can't imagine that they would. I'm sure they have some things and ideas that they want, but Neander's success cannot be what you have to acknowledge it. You just have to acknowledge it. So I think that they will. I like the idea though, man. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to hold you to it, brother, that our first World Series will be won with Eric at the helm as the GM. That's fantastic.
President.
There's
President / GM. Whatever
there you go. President / GM / master
part
of the
owner.
Rays universe.
Part owner, concessions dealer, whatever role he wants to add to his name.
Whatever it takes to keep him, dude. Whatever it takes to keep him.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about what our experience was like at the ball game the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's a different experience in the ball game, but I was looking at the folks hustling to first base, and I did not see the hustle from some people. I thought I'd see more of that. Even there was one time when I saw Chandler Simpson, and he was kind of looking back behind him to see what was going on as he's going to first. And it's like, but the one thing that really shined above and beyond everything else was Yandy Diaz. That man, he was at it. I think at the game we went to at 5 at-bats, he had, I think, 3 hits and 2 walks. It's like, Yandy, yes. This is the guy.
Right. But it does complicate things, though, in the offseason, Mark, because you're looking at Trey Morgan in AAA. You're saying, okay, he's a first baseman. If you're putting him in the outfield, you're sort of hindering yourself in some other ways. Jonathan Aranda and Yandy Diaz plus Trey Morgan starts to complicate the situation in terms of how you're going to play guys and where you're going to play them, especially when then you add the options that they have at second base and the fact that Brandon Lau may clog up the DH role. So the Rays have some decisions to make in a roster makeup this offseason. I don't know that both of them survive the winter. It's possible. They can definitely afford it. That's not a question. Like, there's no financial reason to get rid of either one of them. But it just makes for intriguing options that they have to work with. So I do think that this offseason is going to be markedly different than past off seasons. And if you look at last offseason as an example, Ha-Seong Kim was the best shortstop available. The Rays brought him in, right? The Danny Jansen was supposed to be the best catcher available. They brought him in, and they paid them both handily, for coming in. So they tried to address those 2 key spots. But I think now that they have new ownership coming in and a more matured prospect group that they're trying to add to in order to polish off certain spots, I think what you're going to see them go after is controllable players that can be there long term and not necessarily dip into the free agent pool, because the free agent pool is so flawed and it's so rare that you hit a gold mine in free agency, and you see it all over Major League Baseball. It's not just the Rays. There's so many underperformers that have guys that were signed. I hope that the Rays learn from the guys that do shine. Like, if you go to Eugenio Suarez as an example, right? He's not the type of bat the Rays will ever sign in free agency. They'll never go for that guy because they see him as a DH only. They won't even play him on the field because they're like, oh, it's too embarrassing to have a guy play that way defensively. So they won't even entertain the signing of a guy like that, even though he's very solid defensively. He's just not elite defensively like they demand from certain positions. And so they're locking themselves out of the market of certain players. Kyle Schwarber is another guy that's like that. Sure, he's embarrassing in the outfield. Sure, he's embarrassing at all positions that he plays. But he hits the snot out of the ball, Mark, and he terrorizes pitchers when he first, leads off. So at some point, the Rays have to re-examine that strategy and how they can actually add the thump and they put some fear into the other team's pitchers, essentially. Like Junior Caminero's doing, right? That's awesome. I think Brandon Lau generally does that, and so does Yandy Diaz. So, but you got to find that, that for the rest of the bottom of the lineup. Maybe Carson Williams figures it out at some point and becomes another one of those pieces. But they need to add that in the outfield, in my opinion.
One of the things I did see the other night that, man, it was just kind of sad, Matt, and that was Ryan Pepio. Jeez, what an outing. And I think Kevin just said he just couldn't seem to get the control of the ball. And it's a great talent, and he's done so well with Rays overall. It's just that one night, it wasn't there.
Yeah, Ryan's been, I think if you look back at Chris Archer when he was with the Rays, right? He had those 2-3 seasons of up and coming Chris, and everybody kept waiting for the lights out Chris and the polished Chris to come out, and eventually it did. And I think Ryan has that in him to get to that level, right, of where he can actually start hunting for a Cy Young award at some point. But it takes time. And a lot of that right now, this time of year, is the touch and feel late in the season when your arm is dead tired and it starts feeling like a wet noodle. Like that's one of those things that you learn as a veteran, right? To pace yourself a little bit more so that when you get to this moment, like this end of season, if you were in a playoff spot, obviously, then you still have that gas and that, touch and feel that you're able to perform with what you need to actually be elite. But all I looked at, Mark, honestly, after that start was how was the velocity? And I went and I looked at the velocity. It was fine. I was like, okay, all right, I don't have to worry. Although sometimes the feel is the first thing that goes and not the velo. Some guys will tell you. But yeah, I'm hoping that he goes into the offseason healthy and he comes out of the offseason healthy. That's essentially where Ryan is. I think he's had plenty of development this year. He's learned a lot. He's gotten a lot of innings under his belt. Now he'll be able to take that next step forward next year and lead the staff, quite honestly, next year. Expect him and Shane Baz and Drew Rasmussen, health willing, to be the three top guys for that rotation.
I can't wait to see that, brother. It's going to be interesting, kind of a divergence here. We got a couple of new guests coming on over the next few weeks. We're going to have Lou Schiff on here, and he's going to be able to talk a bit about lawyers in baseball. But the other one's going to be coming up. I'm also interested in around the first part of October, and that's going to be Jane Levy. She's got a book, I think it's called Make Me Commissioner. And I love it because you and I have talked about being commissioner, what changes we'd make. And she's been involved with the game for some time, and I look forward to having her on here but we're in the midst of change, brother.
Yeah, I think the CBA coming up, sneaking up on us,
right?
Shortly and surely. We can have a lot of conversations about that and how the last process went and how she sees that leaking into the next one, with the landscape changing like lightning fast, basically, in terms of the financial structure of the game and how it compares to other games and yada, yada, yada. There's so many avenues we can go down with her, but she's got so much experience monitoring the games and having her finger on the pulse of it that it's going to be a lot of fun to ask her some questions about where she sees things headed.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to Lou because, he moved from New York to here. Mm-hmm. And so he was a Mets fan before he came. And now he's a Marlins fan. And I don't think, unfortunately, I know you don't have much to celebrate this year, but and that slide, oh my gosh, that slide, it was at least 8 games without a win. And I'm thinking, my gosh, Mr. Met, do you and Mrs. Met are you on the rocks? What's going on? And it's over. I mean, there's how many, let's take a look here. What did I say? How many games back were they? They are
They're 12 and a half games back of the Phillies. I don't know how many they're back of the playoff spot, though.
Yeah. Yeah. 12 and a half games back, man. That's just ugly. So, I feel for the Mets fans. I mean, because things were, they were looking okay for a while. I mean, they were, but that's what happens sometimes with a baseball team.
But to me, that's more proof on you can't buy a playoff spot. You can try, but there's a lot of guys underperforming on that team. There's a lot of guys that got hurt, and ultimately that ends up ruining your season. The one thing I wanted to mention tonight as well is, do you remember the Blake Snell trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, we might not get anything out of it because everybody was shipped off, didn't make it, etc. Well, the Rays added Cole Wilcox to the 40-man roster today. So that's the first, guy since Luis Patino that ends up coming up and having an impact with the Rays. I assume that he's going to get in the game at some point. But he's somebody that revived his career as a reliever. So for anybody that doesn't know, the Rays acquired him in 2020. So he's been with them now for 5 years?
Yep.
And he's made his way, trudged all the way up through the ranks, tried his best to make it as a starter. But somewhere around 2024, the whispers started coming out. Well, maybe he should be a reliever. And sure enough, 2025 came and he went into that relief role. Well, he's put in 51 innings in AAA this year, maintained a 1.37 WHIP and a 3.71 ERA. Now, I will say that he's gotten much better as the season's gone on. It's not just mediocre looking stats if you were to read them just on the way they are. I think he's grown to be comfortable in the relief role, and I could see him being one of those guys that ends up being a really, really solid option in the pen. I'm just not sure exactly how much work and how much room there'll be with the Rays long term. But it's nice to see them have another piece from that trade, make it to the team and get a shot to prove what he can do.
Well, folks, keep that in mind the next time you want to say something critical about Eric Neander. Well, it's the case. I mean, time and again, so we're even looking at the Biscuits, some of the folks that are coming up.
Yep. And I also wanted to point out Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, right? The Rays are playing him right now with the Jays, but his journey to get to where he is right now is ridiculous. I think people forget about it sometimes. When he went from the Rangers to the Twins, and then he ended up going to the Yankees in the Mitch Garver deal, he got traded to the Yankees with Josh Donaldson and Ben Rortfeld, who the Rays fans know well, right? So everybody remembers the Yankee days, right? After that, he went to the Blue Jays, and he spent some time with them. And he ended up, not lasting there very long, ended up going to the Pirates instead. So everybody forgets about him at that point because he's with the Pirates for a few years. Well, Lord and behold, he gets released from the Pirates, and the Jays pick him back up. And here he is now with Bo Bichette on IL for the rest of the season, anchoring that position for the Blue Jays.
I love it. The career in baseball, my friend. I mean, up, down, around, where you're going to wind up the same team, IKF. When I during spring training, I went out to Lakeland to see the Flying. No, it wasn't the Flying Tigers. It was the Detroit Tigers. So AJ Hinch is out there with his boys, and then I see the Pirates, and I see the back of a uniform, and there it is, Kiner-Falefa. I thought, no, isn't he still? No, oh, really? Okay, there's not another one out there. I know that. So yeah, there he is, spring training with the Pirates, out there facing the Tigers.
Mark, I've got to stop you. If you have a moment, go back and watch the Chandler Simpson grab over the wall to rob Alejandro Kirk of a home run.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely
Take
love
a
that.
break. I'll wait for you to take a look if you
Oh
have the
man.
opportunity. But no, when you get a chance, definitely go and watch it, folks. That was a good one. That's one that you want to watch a few times.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. No, that's geez, my knees. Oh, well, last night. All right, I'm talking about Tuesday night now. Was there enough strangeness going on as far as home runs and the crowd and a little bit of fan interference? Did you see that? I began to wonder, you know what, was it, did Brandon have like a 3-run home run, but a fan reached, I don't think he reached over, but he got the ball. Uh, I don't think he was in the zone outside of that, but they wound up ruling fan interference, but still gave the runs. And then the Blue Jays, I think the next half inning, whatever, they came up and it was a similar play, but right up there and with
I'm actually
questionable.
surprised it doesn't happen more often than it does, Mark. Like nowadays, especially where people are so daring and want to be in the news for something, it seems. Um, that's one of those that it's kind of fun to watch everybody's reaction. Some of them will be blatant, like, "Oh yeah, I wanted to do it," and then some other ones will be like and totally embarrassed about it. They'll be like, "I can't believe I forgot."
Well, I am definitely going to go back and watch Chandler, but I tell you also when we were there Monday night and watching him field out there and see his speed, not just run the bases, but his speed to get to a ball and catch it, slide across the grass and keep it. And it's like, damn, there's some damn good defense there, Chandler. Keep it up. But
Yeah. And I don't think people give his bat enough credit. Like he's hitting at higher batting average than Yandy Diaz as a rookie. And that isn't easy to do in today's game, right? And,
no,
and he hit another double tonight, so he's got his 12th double in a short period of time. You can see him chipping in 30 to 40 doubles as he matures
there you
in the season. And then
go. Sorry.
yeah.
They were
So
just
I
showing
think
it again.
Chandler is just got that moxie and that feel. I think I have a feeling he's going to be part of the Rays for a long time, unless I mentioned today on Blue Sky, Mark. I don't know if you saw, but the Rays actually finalized their trade with the Yankees that sent Jose Caballero over to New York, and they ended up acquiring Marshall Toole, who's 22 years old, in A-ball. I listed off his rankings in the Florida State League, and he was first in average, first in triples, first in or sorry, second in on base percentage, second in OPS, third in isolated power, and second in WRC plus in that league with
Wow.
148. So when you're looking at Marshall Toole, who can play all three outfield spots, and you pair him with Braylor Guerrero, who's a phenom that's being sent over to the AFL because he has some health issues and he keeps getting hurt. And then you add Theo Gillen, who's the first round draft pick that the Rays are also sending up to A plus next year. And the other high ranked pick that I mentioned before today, Brendan Summerhill, they're all going to be part of the same outfield next year in A plus.
Jeez.
So, that's starting to piece together quite a few intriguing outfield options. And we mentioned Homer Bush Jr. and a couple of other ones before. Colton Ledbetter is another one that's the five tools ish. So the Rays finalized that deal and have added Everson Pereira, which we have benefit of having right now, and we get to see what he can do. And also they have a backup option down in A plus probably to start next year. So it's nice to see adding some competition to the mix.
It's great. Again, it shows the system. It shows the Neandering Company have known what they've been doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing as these guys come up. With Neander still being there, it's also interesting looking, like I said, who's going to be the architects of all this? What's happening? Some other changes, and part of that comes down to the field itself. Now, the good news is recently I've been tracking on Tampa Bay Times the progress on the trop roof getting fixed, and it looks like they'll have it done here soon. But then they'll have to still start working on replacing the turf and everything after that. So we're looking at the being ready for spring training. Yeah, spring training time. And certainly for the regular season. So I'm excited about that because I've had some people say, well, Mark, they're not doing anything over there yet. Well, they are. So things are being done over. The roof is getting put on. And I thank you, St. Pete, for standing up and getting that part done and supporting the Rays, even though it's slowly exiting away to the other side of the bay. But the wildness of this. I mean, thinking of Matt, thinking of George Steinbrenner Field, I would never have thought of the Rays playing a regular season there. I would never think of a baseball field being built in the middle of Raymond James Football Stadium where the Bucks play. Banana time, banana time. But so the Bananas did that because I don't know if you remember that they were supposed to play 2 games at the Trop. And that's what precipitated the whole thing about getting the Raymond James Stadium and building a field there. Well, Raymond James just can't get enough because they're making yet another change to the stadium. And there's going to be NHL will be visiting because they're going to have an outdoor ice rink, I guess. So the Lightning will be playing there. So there is plenty of confusion when you think of what a stadium looks like for your team in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah. I mean, the NHL is pushing the limits on engineering in that one, but I think it's an interesting concept. You know what? The fog coming off the ice alone might be enough. I don't know if you've seen video of this, but the NHL had games once in England, and I think I can't remember which arena it was, but they essentially had so much fog that you couldn't see where the guys were passing to. And it was, a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
Didn't feel
Yeah.
where things are, and it's a pretty physical game.
Jeez,
So yeah, I don't know the whole stadium thing, and I've said this before. Somebody needs to write a book about it because all the twists and turns and ups and downs, and I mean, just think of it this way, Mark, and start from there. Like when Stu Sternberg bought the team in the early 2000s, did anybody think that 20 years later you could sell it for 1.7 billion? Like that wouldn't have even been fathomable at that time, right? So without a stadium, they don't have a home to speak of, after 2028, and he still was able to get at 1.7 billion out of it. So the whole stadium thing, like the fact of the matter that all options are still on the table. They could end up staying in St. Pete. They could end up staying in the Trop. They could end up in Orlando. They could end up in, I don't know, Fort Lauderdale. Anything is possible at this point.
It is.
And there's nothing. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you're right. There's nothing is everything's is possible when it comes to this. It's insane. I mentioned last week, I think the guy who's working with the Orlando Dreamers is also going to be part of this new organization of ownership. So I don't think we're going to see a move there. I wanted to share with you though, and that's why I'm not sharing my screen with you, because I have a survey from 2007, and they were asking people in Hillsborough County, which is in Tampa. It says, I'll read it says here. It says from Channel 8. Recently, 307 Major League Baseball fans in Hillsborough County participated in a survey conducted for News Channel 8, and here are the results. Again, this is 2007. Would you go to more Devil Ray games if a stadium was built in downtown Tampa? Okay, so throw out a number. What do you think percentage of folks said they'd go to more games if it was in downtown Tampa? And this is Hillsborough County people.
I'll say 45%.
Higher than that. I was a little surprised too. 56%. 7% fewer games, 31% no difference, and 6% no share. All right, second question. Where would you prefer to see a stadium built? Here's the locations they gave. Downtown Tampa, near Raymond James Stadium, I-4 and I-75, other and not sure. So where would you prefer to see a stadium built? Do you think? What do you think they were saying in 2007?
Raymond James.
You're right. That's 36%. They got the big one there. I-4 and 75 got 27%. Other is downtown Tampa was 17%. Yeah. Okay.
Because nobody lives downtown. Everybody, that's the simple fact.
It's true. It's true. Because we've also talked about having it at the fairgrounds around here. There's a place called what is it, Toy Town, and other ones. I mean, the old what an old Greyhound
Mhm.
racetrack or something too. Who knows? But let's see. If a new stadium were built, do you think it should be paid for with, this is again 2007, all public money, all private money, both, or not sure? So where do you think, just between public money and private money, what do you think, or both?
I think private money won.
Private money is 47%, both is 50%.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
I
Okay.
was I was
Yeah.
surprised. I don't know that you would have both of that kind of number today.
Mm.
All right, let's see. Do you consider the Devil Rays Tampa baseball team? What do you mean? Do you consider the Devil Rays Tampa? Oh, do you consider the Devil Rays Tampa's baseball team? Now I
Yeah, as
understand.
opposed to St. Petersburg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's funny they left out Bay.
So, how many would consider Tampa's baseball team of the folks that answer that question? What do you think the percentage is? Throw one in there.
I think, oh, that one's probably the trickiest question, to be honest. I'll say 40% consider it Tampa's team.
82%.
Oh, look at that. They
Yeah.
claimed ownership even though they don't go. Well, Mark, that is interesting.
The Go ahead.
I don't think you're allowed to make that kind of statement if you don't go to the games.
Amen. Okay, absolutely. So, because the qualification here just says MLB fans in Hillsborough County. So you can, I mean, how many of us just watch them on TV all the time?
Yeah, right.
Last question. What kind of stadium would you prefer? Asking these folks back in 2007. One, open air. Two, retractable roof. And three, not sure.
Retractable roof.
Correct. 69% was retractable roof. I
Right.
think most people, the 25% probably just aren't thinking clearly. And if we had that one today, if you ask that question today, I don't think open air would be getting under over 7% of that. But anyway,
Especially with the temperature warming up all the time. That's just a little bit crazy. But the
oh yeah.
retractable is the costliest. Like you're seeing the benefits of it with the Jays. They renovated the inside, they fully revamped it. They decided to keep the shell because it is so expensive to rebuild that kind of
Yeah.
system. But I honestly am shocked that under the Stu Sternberg proposals, they never once went to a retractable roof. It was always a fixed roof, right? So I'm hoping, you know what, there might be options on the table that are going to be considered now that are maybe a little bit more modern or maybe a little bit more attractive that will also be retractable in terms of a roof.
I'll share some more of this with you another time. There's just so much coming on from that. But geez, my knees, man, it's just been nuts. Uh, I haven't really got much more to share outside that I'm really happy about this race season overall. It's just a tough time right now, and it's tough on the players when you don't have a positive streak going on. You know, you lose two or three series in a row, and it just hurts. But tonight, what's the score right now, Matt?
It's 1-1, so it's a tie game, but they're getting another strong pitching performance from Ian Seymour. He didn't give up any earned runs. It was on an error, oddly enough, from Carson Williams, who's supposed to be nails. So, the Rays pitching, if you're looking at Ian Seymour as part of a fearsome foursome, and Joe Boyle pitched very well the other day. The Rays pitching is not what I'm afraid of at all for 2026. In fact, I think it's the one that gives you hope that things are going to change extremely quickly. And with Nick Fortes behind the plate, who I think is also a big addition, you know, there there's Junior Caminero, there's Jonathan Aranda we mentioned before. There's a lot of positives for the Rays to lean on and to go into the offseason and not really be hanging their heads down at all. Like you're getting a new owner, you're getting fresh blood, you've loaded the system as best you can, and now we'll get to see what kind of direction changes the new ownership make.
Exciting times, Matt. And I am looking forward, like I said, to our future guests here. If y'all got any recommendations, please let Matt and I know. We'll make sure we get them on the show. I was trying to get Bill and Ted on here, but I found out they're busy on Broadway. They've got a new production of Waiting for Godot. Godot. I always said Godot, but it's Godot. So
Yeah. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's available. We can
is
have him
he?
on. Yeah. Apparently they canceled this show now because of what was said about somebody's passing away, and so they weren't happy with it. So now he's available to come on the show. I can
Oh.
get a hold of his agent and maybe put some feelers out and see if he wants to talk some ball.
Well, it's in you, Brush. You brought that up because I know some changing in host. Because I had a call from the vice president's office saying he's looking for some other new podcasts he'd like to do too, and it's curious if I'd like to step down and be here, but I don't know. Well, I'd have to get a flight on Air Force Two to do that. So anyway, right now we'll get Jimmy Kimmel here next, and till then, I want to thank you guys for joining Matt and I here today. I hope you're enjoying baseball as much as we do. And until the next time we talk with you, we send you a big happy Rays Up.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.bskysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social, or Mark at baseballbizondeck@gmail.com. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to Scott Holmes for the music, stomps, and claps.